I don't know about you, but I feel that there's a sense of everything starting to have a cumulative effect, and things happening faster and faster, and cause and effect, whether it's, you know, the whole kind of continual game of problem, reaction, solution. It's like they're sort of trying to work to a timeline. They've got to get their chess pieces into the right sort of strategic places so that they can win their game. It feels like we're just going round in circles, and all of the protesters talk about revolutions. But surely you don't want a revolution, because a revolution means you're going round in a big circle and you're ending up eventually back at square one again. So I think more than a revolution, we need a sort of an evolution, because instead of going round we need to go forwards, but sometimes to go forwards we need to go back, if that makes sense. Because we've sort of lost touch with our roots, and we've lost touch with what it means to be a community, and what it means to be a neighbour, and what it means to be a family, and what it means to be a human. You know, we are losing our sort of humanity and our sort of spiritual side of our life, and it's not about saying that capitalism is in crisis, because it's not capitalism that's in crisis. It's the whole system. It's everything from beginning to end, top to bottom, and simply trying to pigeonhole it into one neat little box isn't going to solve anything. But obviously the problem is that one person's idea of a utopia is another person's idea of a dystopia and a nightmare. It's fashionable to call for communism or socialism, and it's fashionable to hate capitalism, and I can see both sides of each argument. But there's a saying that communism is the equal sharing of misery, and capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. And I think it's true, you know, neither is the right way. They both have their downfalls. It's difficult to know exactly what the solution would be. I would say, first and foremost, you'd have to dismantle the current system, the current people in the system. That means governments, corporations, you know, from top to bottom, because the trouble is it shouldn't be so much about getting rid of a system altogether, because that's the trouble. If you get rid of the current system, what do you replace it with? Do you replace it with something much worse? People need to be careful what they call for. Call for change. Well, you know, yes, but one person's idea of change is another person's idea of, you know, what one person might view as progressive change, another person might view as, you know, a step down towards tyranny, or, you know, whatever. So, first and foremost, you know, you'd have to reform the entire political sphere. You know, how do we do politics? In this country we say we live in a democracy, but we don't. because the only people that get into power are they have to be one of the three main parties, so they're already polarised into left, right or liberal. B, you have to have money behind you, which is why most of them end up being millionaires. So that means you're being run by people who are massively out of touch with the normal working people of the country. So I would say if you're going to have a proper democratic process, proper democracy, then you'd have to a certain extent, ensure that money plays no part in it. Get rid of money altogether within the whole process of politics and voting. You know, someone that is a good leader, someone who is gonna lead the country well or do well for the country or for the government, and for the people, should be able to be popular based on their own merit, not on the fact that they're backed by, you know, their own millions in the bank, or whether they're backed by whatever private interests. You know, you would have to get rid of pretty much everyone that's already in Parliament, pretty much all the MPs, start again from scratch. I mean, when I think of the MPs that represents me, I've never had it. He's never come to my front door to ask me what I think. I've tried contacting him. He's pretty impossible to get hold of. He doesn't represent me in any way, shape or form. You know, the only time I've ever had a MP or a prospective MP or a politician knock on my door was actually in Australia, and I don't even, you know, I couldn't even vote there. So that was kind of ironic. You know, I had to say I'm really sorry, but you know, thanks for knocking at my door. It's nice to talk to you. It's nice that you're, you know, genuinely interested in talking to your constituents, but I can't vote because I'm not Australian. Unfortunately, I wish I was. But yeah, no, I mean, the politicians in this country are just, they do not represent their constituents. They do not represent the people. They are too caught up in their own interests, with their own careers. And then we saw recently with the whole situation in Parliament, all the MPs voting to not have a referendum on the EU, on EU membership. I mean, it's just shows how treasonous and undemocratic the vast majority of our parliament is, because a referendum is about democracy. A referendum is about giving the people of this country a say, and yeah, a referendum is about giving the referendum is the ultimate form of democracy, because it's giving the British people a say on some. I mean, the last vote on the EU was in the 70s. I wasn't born then, and it wasn't even to do with a federal EU superstate. It was to do with a free trade agreement. And since then, they've just railroaded their way through our sort of sovereignty, and successive governments have just sold more and more of our powers away to Brussels. So we've never been given a say, and it's absolutely treasonous that David Cameron went out and said, you know, David Cameron promised a referendum. Everyone unfortunately, I mean, I could see through it. It's, you know, how obvious was it that he was a total con man, and that he was never going to follow through with this. He'd already declared himself the heir to Blair. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that he wasn't going to fulfil his promise for a referendum, and yet millions of people voted for him. How did they vote for him? Why? Who are these people? I want to know who these people are who voted for David Cameron, who voted for the Tories. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that voting for Lib Dem or Labour is any better, because it's not. Anyone that voted for the three main parties, you just need your head checking. It's just madness. I mean, we're just going to keep going round and round and round and round and being fed the same lies and the same lies and the same spin and the same PR and the same total bullshit every time people just keep voting all the three main parties in. And I'm not saying that it's about relying on politics, because I think that one of the things that, talking about all these protests and everything, they talk about the bankers and the banking system, and obviously that is a massive problem as well, because we live in it's not just about politics, it's about profit. We live in a society in which, you know, big corporations profit out of misery, basically, you know, and you have higher and higher prices of food, higher and higher prices of energy, higher and higher prices of property, higher and higher prices of everything, apart from wages. Obviously, wages haven't gone up. I don't know about you, but I feel that there's a sense of everything starting to have a cumulative effect, and things happening faster and faster, and cause and effect, whether it's you're ending up eventually back at square one again. So I think more than a revolution, we need a sort of an evolution. Work to a timeline. They've got to get their chess pieces into the right sort of strategic places so that they can win their game. You know, the whole kind of continual game of problem, reaction, solution. It's like they're sort of trying to... it feels like we're just going round in circles, and all of the protesters talk about revolutions. But surely you don't want a revolution, because a revolution means you're going round in a big circle and you